Welcome back to the Butterfly Season podcast. You guys, I'm so excited. Today we have Jordan on to talk about energetics, cord cutting, and all of the things. Jordan, if you don't know her already, I know you will fall in love with her after this episode, but she is a spiritual ascension guide, an expert in soul transformation and mindset breakthrough, and talking about energetics and vibes and energy. I know it sounds really woo-woo, but we kind of get into the nitty gritty on it so that we can really see like what that means for us in our lives. And I'm so excited to have her on today because this is going to be a good one. I swear. Jordan, I am so excited to have you on the podcast. I feel like it's a really long time coming, and I selfishly have been keeping you to myself, and now the community gets to have so much of you. I already know this is going to be like, just based off how things started, I already know that this is going to be a fire episode.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And before we get into it, I just want to take like 30 seconds and acknowledge you for your amazing efforts this year, how you've expanded, for your beauty, for your impact, for your connection to spirit. And really, when you are moving into a space of entrepreneurship and you're doing it with the intention of impact, it can be felt, and I feel it. And I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm like, receiving is hard, right? Like sometimes I'm just like, okay, enough. Thank you so much. But seriously, thank you for that. And gosh, it's been a long time coming. And talk about butterfly season, right? Like, all of the things that have brought me to this point is definitely like the whole metamorphosis of what is butterfly season. So thank you for acknowledging me in that way. And I'm just happy to talk all things butterfly season with you on the podcast.
I'm an open book.
So I'm going to jump right into it. You are such a spiritual force and energy. I've seen you speak twice now, and every time I'm like, what is happening? What's happening here? What's going on? Everyone leaves like with a much different energy, and it's unforgettable. Like literally, I remember you speaking at Fast Foundations, and we did this like childhood meditation where you brought us back to a place, and I don't even remember what exactly we did. I walked somewhere to get somewhere, ended up at my house, my old childhood house, and when I opened my eyes, literally everyone in the room was sobbing. And I bring that up because I would love to know the power behind some of this, like understanding maybe childhood trauma, childhood wounds, and why bringing people back to that point is integral for growth of their next season of life.
I'll start off by saying that I don't preach a spiritual belief of one understanding. I believe everyone has a belief of their own understanding. So you'll hear me use words like God, universe, spirit, and I'll interchange them. I can go into my belief system later if that comes up. But what I'll share is that especially if I'm on a stage or if I'm brought somewhere to activate a community or anchor a community, it's not me. I'm literally just a messenger. I don't plan. I don't know what's going to come up. I don't have slides. I just let source run through me, and whatever needs to be delivered is delivered. So it's interesting that you ask about Fast Foundations because, Chris and Lori have been mentors for a long time of mine. I was in his elite mastermind, and he had asked me to come speak at Fast Foundations. He always has like a little woo, a little spiritual on the first day to kind of crack open hearts and like let people really be in a space of receptivity for all of the logistics and things that they're going to learn. And so that was my job. And when I thought of Fast Foundations, then and even now, I think two other people took it over. It's a stepping stone, right? To like infinite potential. Like I am committed to my growth. I'm committed to what's possible for me. And there are some things that I desire to learn. Maybe I need to gain confidence, whatever, before I can get there. So, that day, I remember the meditation very clearly. And, what ran through me, peeling back the layers of an onion. And so if I work with a client like one-on-one for, say, a year, we spend so much time like peeling layer. And I have 45 minutes to crack you so that you can take whatever information comes next and do something with it. And so the easiest way to peel layers back is drop into childhood. Where do energies of blockage start? There, right? And so drop in before any of the things, any of the whispers of no, you can't, or you're not good enough, or you're too much, or you're too loud, or our family can't do that, or this is your. Like, no one told us.
I
Oh my
don't
God. Okay, I'm gonna send it to
I
you
don't
later.
think
But
so.
anyway, so we could be like superheroes if we wanted. So dropping you in a childhood space, and then what I had you guys do was travel to a space where you like reclaimed one of your gifts, a gift that you were born with, a gift that was yours, like on an innate soul level before it was suppressed. I had you reclaim it. I had you put it back into your body. So that way, when we came out of that meditation, boom, it's back.
That is so beautiful. And I'm just like, what is it? I have so many questions, but this is a first lower hanging question. What is it that is activated with somebody to open their eyes and feel like they claimed it back? Like, there was like not a dry eye in the room. Like, what is it that we don't realize that we tap into? Because I feel like when I hear you saying this, it seems like something that we can all do, whether guided or not, to like reclaim something that you know was going to propel you to the next thing.
Right. Yes, and it's not. I don't know if you're a Game of Thrones fan, but I love Tyrion Lannister, and he says everything before "but" in a sentence is a lie. So I always try to use "and." Yes, we can all
Yeah.
claim it, and you know, into spirituality or manifestation, and not like I'm talking true manifestation, not like the buzzword, and really like tuning into our innate abilities and then marrying that with our human capabilities. It's not something that's super common. Like people don't think I want to get ahead in
Mm-hmm.
my business, so I'm gonna like do a childhood meditation, right? So could you do that
Yeah.
not guided? Sure. And it's something that, well, I'm not a believer in coincidence. So I think, you were led to that room that day. Everyone in that room was led to that room that day because they've probably done the things. They've probably tried the things. They probably had businesses prior. You did. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is a thing that we wouldn't just go out and seek. We'd go out and seek it for healing. We'd go out and seek it if we had
Yeah.
can I cuss on this podcast? We'd go out and seek it
You
if we have a fucked up
can.
relationship with our mom. But we don't think like
Right.
business. Here's the thing though, like energetics and money, it's so related. Money is energy. So if you can go into your spiritual essence and tune into what's possible for you on an innate soul level and then marry that to your human capabilities, that's where the magic is.
Yeah. And so for somebody listening right now that's like, I feel like this might be beneficial to me, where should they start?
Basic and like uncover. Get a
Mm-hmm.
picture of yourself as a child. Go back there before all of the no's. And what if there were no no's? How would you do things different?
Mm.
Right? Because rejection is just redirection. So
Right.
we've all had no's, we've all had the rejection to the redirection. And if we feel like we are in a space of density or we're blocked or we've been making, X amount of dollars per month for the last 3 years, we just can't get over the hump. Start over. If there were no no's, where would you have
Right.
gone?
Yeah. And then when we're there and you can see where maybe you would have gone, then what? And the reason why I ask that is because I feel like sometimes we have like tools and it stops at tools and there's no like integration. You know what I
I have an
mean?
answer for you. And it's something that everyone can use. Whether you are a housewife or in a corporate career or an entrepreneur, any human can use this. So I'm a real big fan of Neil Donald Walsh books, Conversations with God. And in Conversations with God, book one, he says, or he channels from God, if you want to know the truth of a thing, look to how you feel about it.
Hmm.
Really tuning back into the body and is this direction? Like, how does it make me feel? Not yes or no because I should or I shouldn't or so and so wants me to or this is the right thing to do, but how does this make me feel? If it's in your life path, You're going to feel it. And it's your intuition is what it is. And the more you
Mm-hmm.
utilize it, the stronger it gets. That's the magic of that.
Yeah. Right. And coming from somebody who I am definitely a person who has allowed other voices to be louder than my own. And right now, in my own spiritual practice with my therapist, I'm working on trusting myself a lot more, especially with respect to intuition, because I feel like some of the common themes around intuition, for people who maybe don't believe in it or whatever, when you don't have any evidence, but there's a feeling, especially with people, like I would feel like I don't want to be a hater. I hope I'm not being a hater, but I feel like this, right? Some of that is intuition. And I know that the better you get at it, or sorry, the more you use it, the better you get at it. But what would you say to somebody who's like, I don't even know where to, like, what's like the easiest way to begin where there's like low risk, right? Like, how can you?
There's never low risk. It's practice. It's a
Mm-hmm,
practice.
mm-hmm,
And you're not you said some of it's intuition, all of it's intuition. People have energy. They have a
mm-hmm,
vibe. Like vibes are real.
mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean
Yeah.
that they're bad people. They just not be an energetic alignment to you. And that's okay.
That's what I struggled
Yeah.
with.
And that's
So
okay.
initially I was like, are all these people bad? Like, there's no
They're just
way.
not
But
for me in
I,
this, and it may be not even be in your season. For example, somebody in your cocoon season may not fit in your butterfly season.
mm-hmm,
Butterfly season maybe wasn't around in your cocoon season, and so on before and ever after. Like, people have seasons, and I've had so many lessons from so many people, and I've had people that like were such an energetic alignment and they fit. Oh my god, well, I'm on my phone so I can't share, but today I got blocked on Instagram, so I can't use it for a while. But today I almost shared a thing. I'll send it to you after, and it said something along the lines of, when you outgrow a season, you outgrow connections that were meant to be in that season. And so it's not that
mm,
people leave you or that they're not a fit for you. And even someone that you just meet, like maybe right now, it's just a no. And then maybe down the road, it's a fit. It's not you being a hater, it's you
yeah,
trusting like your feels, And there's no
yeah,
easy way. Practice. Just practice. The more you do it, the more you like say yes, because your intuition, just like anything else, is an energy and it desires to be acknowledged. So if you shut it
mm,
down every time it says yes and you do a no, it kind of lowers the pressure. If you say no and it's a yes, it lowers the pressure. But if you follow your gut every time, even if it doesn't make sense, you'll be gifted, because it's like she's going to listen.
right. And so let's just pretend someone is super calcified in that area, right? Like, and I'm not sure that if you don't use it, you lose it. I think it's probably just a little bit harder, or maybe you're experiencing the same lessons over and over again. What are some signals to tell you that it's intuition? Like, is it a body thing? Is it how can you tell somebody if they're like, I literally don't know if I have intuition. I don't think I have intuition. What would you say that would be signals for them to find it?
Really good. This podcast is really good for me because it's been a long time since I've gone to like basic.
Basic
Yeah, yeah,
granular
yeah,
level.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, okay, this is a good question. So, 100% your body. Physical symptoms are the easiest sign. A pit in the bottom of my stomach, excitement in my chest, God bumps, goosebumps. Repeating numbers. This is
Mm,
another thing. Like repeating numbers, they're signs. So if I think something and I see this 222, or if I meet someone and I just like have chills all over my body, and it's weird, right? So I don't know if do you know Monique Benabou? Do you know who she is?
mm-mm.
Okay, I met her through
No.
the same circle. So she sang at Lori's Bliss Project a couple times, and this is when I was first like starting to serve women and practicing this, right? And so I'm like, we're supposed to be friends. And she was a speaker, and at that time I hadn't spoke on her stage yet or anything, so I was a student there, and I felt this like huge like insignificance and this huge like I pedestaled like everyone on stage. And so, but I just knew, and my gut kept saying like, and so I just like went up to her and I was like, "You want to go to lunch with me? I'm gonna be another." She's like, "Yeah." And then like we met and we had like so many, and we're still friends. And
Yeah.
there's been seasons where it's been quieter, and there's been seasons where we show up like in deeper connection with each other. But that's like a hit. And so if you're really calcified in that area, I would say pay attention to the physical symptoms first.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay. I want to get into the numbers thing because I am very much the girl that's like, I straddle. I straddle the woo-woo, like, whatever fence. Like, a lot of things I'm bought into. Like, I would, I speak out of both sides of my mouth, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So I am the person that would be like, yeah, like, I don't get sick. I vibe too high, right? And people would be like, hmm. But somebody who's like very like woo spiritual would be like, oh yeah, I understand. But at the same time, I struggle with repeating numbers because I feel like my logical brain says you will find whatever you're looking for. Like, and if you like think like if you ever bought a car or you're on the hunt for a car and you're like, yeah, I really want this. Like for me, it was a Tesla. I really want a Tesla. And like I would see them everywhere. I felt like there were more Teslas on the road the moment I said I want a Tesla. Like somehow there weren't before, but now there is. And I feel like that's just me creating this like awareness about it. And I feel like some people might even get into like a toxic positivity pattern by your brain noticing these things more often. What is your thoughts on that?
Both are accurate. So this is like such a great question because we are co-creators in this experience. It's divine and our human selves like here to play out this experience, right? And we have divine within us. And so it's absolutely right. You're creating it. If you're saying, I want a Tesla, you're going to see it as an affirmation that if it's in alignment, it's an affirmation. So repeating numbers, like, yes, if you're thinking this is a sign for me, they're going to show up as an affirmation. So that's accurate. And for me, I have 1111 tattooed on my arm. I have be relentless in pursuit of your truth. And then I have 1111 tattooed. And when I first started seeing it, it was introduced to me by somebody. And then that person passed. And then I like saw it everywhere. So was I looking for it? Maybe. I don't know. And I was an admin on the 1111 movement on Facebook for, I don't know, a couple of years. They have like over 100,000 members now. And if you go into the stories, and the story of like one of the original people from that group, he was like seeing this number. He was living in a flat in London or something. And he was working a corporate job and he was doing all these things. He kept seeing the number. He even moved houses, seeing the number. Anyway, so he decides on 11/11/2011, he's going to do this 11-day fast. He's just going to go all in with it, surrender to it. So he did this fast and he's trying not to eat on the very last day on the 11th. And he looks up in his new apartment and it's carved into the wood. And he's like, now I'm fucking freaked out. Like, this is crazy. So then he tries to like numb out and he's like scrolling on this, like on his Facebook or whatever. And he sees this orphanage in Tanzania that is asking for donations, or this orphanage in Africa somewhere that's asking for these donations. So he messages them. This is like at, I don't know, 10:30 in the evening. He messages them. That's it. At 1:11 a.m. that morning, he gets an email from a different orphanage, not the one he messaged, and says, we need you here, come. And he didn't know what that meant. He tried to write back, no answer. He's like, I have to go. Like, this is, sold all his shit, went to this, found this orphanage, gets there, walks into the orphanage, and you can put the link later of the full story. It's on YouTube. Walks into the orphanage, and this man's standing there and says, we've been waiting for you. And then walks out and leaves, and that's it. And then the man that left or whatever, I don't know if he was the other leader or whatever, like basically left him the orphanage, this house, all the, like this whole dog kennel, and like all of the nuns and everybody that was there, like, or everyone, all the helpers were like talking to him like he was in charge, and he just stayed, like he just like went there and and since has like built this huge life there, this huge community, and they've expanded and they've helped so many children, and now he's married and he has children of his own, and but he just literally followed the numbers until he got there. And it really resonated with me, that story. And so I think you're right. We co-create, so we manifest in our mind affirmations. And I think like we're not affirmed of what's not for us, right? That's why, you know, when there's something and it's like the answer's like you're really trying to force it, but the answer's no. Like maybe it's hanging out with a certain person or being acknowledged by somebody or a car that you really want and you just never see. It's because you're not getting affirmed because the answer is no. So you're not going to create because you're only part of the co-creation.
Yeah. And so then what would we say for somebody who feels like they're getting affirmed and the answer is no? I guess in the moment the answer is no.
strong believer in there is no. It's yes, not right now, or I have something better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I believe that
It's all
also.
going back to faith. And faith, people think you just have it or you don't. It's not true.
Right.
Like some people grow up in certain religion and they bust out and then they're not faithful, and then they grow up in a religion and they keep that or whatever, and they think it's like it's something that it's still a practice. Like whatever you are have it as an adult,
Right.
it's a practice. So it's just
Right.
like retuning your mind to think like no is just it's either yes, it's not right now, or I have something better. There is not a no.
Yeah. And so with that, I feel like there is an open door for like toxic positivity or manipulation in this space. Like,
Explain to me what you mean, because I heard you say that earlier, but I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Are you talking about like spiritual bypassing?
so the question is, or even in relation to spiritual bypassing, but I just think like, look, you told me the story about this guy who's just trusting 1111 and he's done all these things, moved to a completely different country, sold every single thing. Like there's so much emotion tied into all of that for a person that's hearing that, right? And they might be like, maybe like I might just not go that far with trusting whatever is next for me. But I think because some people do trust it, other people can maybe take advantage of you trusting a bunch in a sign or intuition, and it can be used like in a negative way sometimes when there's like another party involved, you know? So,
Give me like an example. You can just give me like a metaphorical example.
yeah, so let's just say like even online on Instagram, you'll see like spiritual people will put my prices are 22222. And for somebody who's looking for a bunch of signs and then sees that number, do you feel like you're taking advantage of that being somebody's like angel number sign?
That's a really good question. So all of my prices are repeating numbers, and
Mm-hmm.
and you know the credibility of my work, right? And so
Right.
for me, it's because each number holds a certain energetic, and so when I price things, it's based on that energetic. Now here's the thing: is some things are priced lower than they would have been because I want to have that number. Some things are priced higher. I don't think it's taking advantage, because I think that each person in their human essence is responsible for their experience. And I think whether you
Mm-hmm.
are spiritual bypassing or anything like that, it's still part of your growth. I call it like people like transcend ego until they get to the spiritual ego. And that's like,
Yeah.
I'm so holy and I do all these things and I meditate and I have all the repeating numbers and I have everything and I'm happy and you should pay me all this money. And I've been there. And if you're really committed in a deep faith and a deep service, then you're going to be willing to look at also the dark side of your human. So just the same way, like we want to be happy and blissful and all these things, we also get to be sad and angry. There's no bad and there's no good. It's all a spectrum of emotion that we're here to experience as humans. That's why we're spirits in this body, to be embodied and experience that. So when you're on your path, and for anybody listening that is just new on the path of whether it's transformation or any type of spirituality, if you want to check yourself, just ask yourself if you're looking at both sides of the coin. It's all love and light, and it's also a little bit of fuck you sometimes. Like you get to have both. You get to be in your human and looking at your shadows and really going into like the shadow work and the trauma work is equally as important as plant medicine and manifestation. It's equally as important. And so I think that, yeah.
What is shadow work?
Shadow work is when you have a willingness to look at basically the opposite side of your light. So if I am graceful and I'm generous and I'm peaceful and I am all these things, can I also be jealous? Can I also be judgy? Can I also be a little bit hateful? Like looking at the opposite of your light, that's shadow work. And so I'm not going to get into shadow work. That's a whole thing. But you can look it up, and there are people who specialize in that. I do not. I mean, if I have a private client, we do look at shadows, but and some people they have some demons, and some people don't have as big a demons, and it's all relative.
Yeah, totally. Now, I have some more questions on cord cutting. And how do you feel about that?
I've done it. I did it recently.
And so tell me with your definition what it is.
So when you are in any type of relationship with somebody, it could be romantic, it can be professional, it could be platonic, your energies tether. Okay. And so we have all these cords. We have these cords to our moms and our boyfriends and our friends, and we even have cords to somebody who we really remember got the feels with at coffee, like when we were getting our Starbucks. So like it was an old man and his wife just died, and I bought him a coffee. Like now you have a cord. And some of them are uh, they're tight and they're strong and they're large and they're balanced. And some of them are like threads, and so they serve you and then they leave. But some of them stay. And so a cord cutting is when you have a feeling that somebody is not in alignment with your highest self, or they do not have your highest interest, and you decide to completely disconnect from their energy. So it's not like, so say I had a partner in a business and then we split and there was like some toxicity or whatever, or even if it was good, but that chapter was over for me. We said goodbye, right? And we're tethered. So a cord cutting is exactly what it says, like snipping that tether so that now I reclaim my energy from this person and they reclaim their energy from me.
So how do you know? How would you know? How would somebody, what are some signals that somebody could pick up on to determine whether or not that they still have an energetic cord to somebody?
You've left somebody, or you've separated ways from somebody, parted ways from somebody, and you think about them all the time, or you dream about them, or there's still things from that relationship that are disturbing your peace. So that's always a great measure, is like, is this a disruption to my system, right? If it is, there's
Yeah.
probably a tether that needs to be cut.
Wow. And there is that on the healthy side, right? I would imagine that a healthy, energetic tie, you might still dream about somebody or think about them a lot. How can you tell the difference between like a healthy, energetic tie and a negative or a toxic one?
I have dreams of people that are no longer in my life anymore, and I don't have any. It doesn't cause me disruption in my system. I'm at peace when I think about them. I'm at peace when I dream about them. So, if there is a tether, it's serving me in some way. It's serving my highest evolution. It's
Mm.
not. It's not hurting me. Right now, if I had here's the thing. I dated this guy. I don't know, about 10, 15 years ago. He was a UFC fighter. Anyways, one night I dated him for quite a while. One night he ended up like beating the shit out of me. This is like a true story. Like random, just out of nowhere. I never knew it was coming. So wild. And I never like spoke to him again after because it was just insane. And I was so afraid to tell him all these things because he was from Brazil and he would get deported and he would lose his career and his family's poor. And so I had all these like thoughts about like not telling. And anyway, I had a dream about him a while back, and I never, when I dated him, I wasn't really into this work. It was like before I started it, and so I didn't know about cord cutting. And I had a dream about him, and it like caused me disruption in my system because even the dream wasn't
Mm.
bad. And when I woke up, I'm like, ugh, like I felt fearful, I felt disrupted, I felt emotional. So it's like, no, like your energy is not allowed. And here's something really important about cord cutting that I want to share with you. When you choose to cut a cord energetically, they feel it. So if you have a boyfriend and then you break up with him and then, months later you work with Jordan or you talk to Aisha and then you decide to cut your cord, they're going to call you. Like they're going to call you. You'll see them, like they feel it. And this is like the crazy thing with energy. So people can feel. So an example is I had a disgruntled client and we parted ways. And then I did cord cutting. And that day she like called me to apologize the same day. And I'm like, thank you. And like, it's because she felt the cord cut.
Right, right. And so what would you recommend you do in an instance where, you're doing a cord cutting with an ex-friend or an ex-boyfriend or a terrible client and they call you to apologize? I feel like for some people who maybe might feel like that's a sign to like rekindle or that they've
They won't.
changed.
If they cut the cord, they won't. They cut the cord, they won't. If they didn't actually cut the cord, then yeah. And it's how I took it is I've matured so much in my like conscious relationships. So I'm like, I
Mhm.
really appreciate the apology. And it's
Yeah.
not the standard of the people that I want in my life. So you don't have to be like
Yeah.
hateful, like, no, I cut your cord, don't call, but you can be like, thank you for the call, and I never want to talk to you again.
Right, right. Wow. I honestly wish I knew this like years ago. When I was running my agency, we had this client. She was crazy and so mean to me and so rude. And like, I just didn't have enough like self worth at the time to be like, this is unacceptable. And I would literally have anxiety dreams about her. Like, there was one dream where she was like, I was outside in the front of a house and it was pouring rain and she was making me juggle babies, but the babies were naked, not in like a sexual way, but meaning like they were just
So,
slippery.
yeah.
And so I'm trying to juggle and I don't want to drop them because if I drop the babies, then they'll die probably. And there's like lightning and I'm just like trying to juggle these babies.
Goodness. Yes. Wow.
And I'm like, if this is not an anxiety dream, like that for sure was like fucking with my nervous system, that I'm having stress dreams about this client. Like, it definitely should have been like fire the client and do a cord cutting.
Well, have you done one since?
I have actually. I did one in, it's been a long time, but I did it, I mean, last year over the summer after July. I don't remember the month, but I did like a cord cutting meditation because I was just going through some legal issues and felt like there was some energetic ties there that needed to be like cut.
Yeah.
So speaking of cord cutting, I want to talk about techniques. I imagine there are several different ways. Like I just did a guided meditation with it on Insight Timer, but I remember stumbling upon years ago a live where Gabby Bernstein was doing a live cord cutting, and I've heard people talk about it. So what are the different techniques? Can someone DIY this at home?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing is it's so relative to your situation. So I can't say like it's like you can do this or this or this. It's really relative to what your situation is. But what I will say is I'll share, I have a client right now who had a narcissistic boyfriend, and she went back to him once, she separated from him again, and she was still like calling his kids and like, oh, I left this at your house, and just like little like things. And I'm like, you gotta cut it. And so I had her take a bowl, like a tin bowl, and she had a T-shirt of his, and I had her like write like a fuck you letter to him. Like it's not hateful, it's just like fuck you for blah 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 blah. And it doesn't even have to be forgiveness. That's a whole nother thing. It's just, and then I had her burn the letter, and then I had her burn the T-shirt, and then I had her call in like her guides and like her team and ask like, hold me, support me, and like, please let this be untethered. Any tether that's not for my highest good, including this one, let it be untethered, and then complete. And then she went and took a cold shower and like energetically just like washed it all off. And then, yeah, and then he texted her that afternoon.
And so if you're listening at home, don't be doing this to try to lure somebody back into your ethos. This is not a lure technique. Okay, so when in that instance, how often should you be doing it? I imagine you might feel something. Like I wasn't sure if I guess when I did my cord cutting, I was just like, I just really hope that this works. Like I really hope that this allows them to like leave me alone. Like I really, really want this to be the thing. But like, how will you know? I feel like it's just so tied to the other person. Like I feel like I put all my hopes and desires and it kind of made me like less emotionally tied to whatever was happening. But for somebody who's new to this and knows that like they're listening to us and they're like, yes, that checks out. I can tell that when I feel something about this person that it doesn't feel great, or anytime maybe I have them as friends on Instagram and I swipe through their page, I'm just like, oh, it's like I don't like it. How often should we do this? Do we know? Like, what are the signs?
So first, and I think I know what you're asking, but I'm going to answer a couple questions. So first, this isn't just like everyone you don't like on Instagram. Like, this is it's magic essentially. It's magic. It's working with energetics. It's real. And so, a gauge for who you need to cord cut with is if it causes you like true disruption in your system. Not like, oh, they're probably a mirror for me and that's why they're triggering me. Like not every trigger, just somebody that's causing really like deep contraction in your body, disruption in your system or in your field, in your environment, in your community. that's who you would do. And yeah, so like my cord cutting with my former client that I just told you about was different. Like I have a medicine that I use. It's sacred tobacco from the Yawanawa from the Amazon in Brazil. And it's a tobacco snuff. You blow it up your nose. It's called rapé. And I sat with rapé and really like sank into my heart to like feel how I felt about the whole situation. And it was just literally like a prayer. And it was like, let it be done. Like, and there's a huge relief in your system after. So to answer your other question about how do you know if it works is it's back to a faith. It's a faith thing. You have to know going into it that it's going to work. It's not like, oh, like it's not like a Ouija board. It's not like, oh, we're going to call, like talk to dead people. No, it's like, I know that like, I know I need relief from this. So I'm choosing to go into this with a faith space. Like I'm going to untether this bond and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fine to do it multiple times if you feel like maybe there wasn't an energetic release.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's still like super bothering you after cord cutting, you should probably get a restraining order. So, or
step 1, cord cut. Step 2, file a restraining order.
If there's like energetic disruption, and it's something that you're feeling is not complete with DIY, then the answer is to get help. The answer is to seek somebody that does this kind of work that can walk you through a deeper practice.
Right. You mentioned mirroring, and I think a lot of us can relate to seeing things online that irritate you, and maybe you don't know why, but you allow the irritation to be there, or you don't even explore the irritation and you might communicate to other people that you're irritated. I remember really early on in my entrepreneurial journey, I didn't have any boundaries, especially with work. I worked so much. On a business front, like wasn't calculating time across, what I was quoting. So I was wondering why I was working so much to make so little. And like people in the space on the weekends, like my competitors would be out, like enjoying their lives at the farmer's market, like at the movies, at the club, like they would just be doing things. And I felt like it would irritate me. And I would be like, well, it's because I'm just doing much more business, right? Like, how we kind of tell ourselves these things to make ourselves feel better. How can anyone listening be better issue spotters to maybe someone who's a mirror to something that they want and they don't realize it? Or
here's the key to understanding this. And it's such a beautiful thing. And it's something that, it took me quite a while to really understand and process through and navigate. So when somebody gives you a charge, and that can be a trigger, it can be a positive charge, but it's not monotone, right? It's like, ooh, Aisha made me feel something when I saw her in Phoenix or whatever. Somebody gives you a charge, there's two things, only two. If you're disrupted in like a triggered way, they are either showing you something that you have or do that you don't like in yourself, or they are showing you the infinite potential that's untapped within you. So for your example, it's like you had, and now, the potential to have this balance where you were an entrepreneur and enjoyed your life like to the fullest, because that's the whole fucking purpose of doing it, right? And so, if somebody is triggering us or charging us, it's either because there's something about them that we also have that we don't like in ourselves, or it's because we are observing something that we are capable of, a potential that's within us that we have yet to unleash.
Yeah. And so on a more like cultural level, like very low-hanging fruit level, for people who are just scrolling and activated by somebody, irritated, oftentimes I feel like in the social media world, you wouldn't, and maybe you would, but let's just go there. You wouldn't like unfollow if there was not a reason. So are we like muting people? Like, how does this work online when we're trusting our intuition, but you also don't want to start drama, but someone also activates you online? Like, what's the first step in addressing something like that?
111% of the time, always look inward. Because, I don't, unless I did a cord cutting, right, then I'm going to unfollow them. But other than that, it's like, if somebody, I get charges. And so it's observing the charge and just ask yourself those questions. What is it about them that is the same as me and that I don't like, that now I get to address that? Or what is it about them that I can have, do, or be? That I am whatever, I'm
Yeah.
playing too small, I'm whatever, like, what's the charge? So really turning inward to
Right.
what's the charge? Where does it come from? Because it has
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with them. Nothing to do with them. Even if
Mm-hmm.
it's they're doing something wrong, it's all relative to like what your opinion is of what's appropriate. And that's based on your social conditioning, on your upbringing, on all kinds of things. So turn inward. Why? Why do I feel this way? And take radical responsibility for your own charge.
I feel like nobody's going to want to do that because that's a hard conversation to have. It's a really hard and it's probably like 2 to 3 questions passed behind why do I feel this way?
So
Jeez.
if you want, I'll share a personal experience of this. So
I would love
do you
that.
know Taylor Simpson?
I've heard of her.
Okay, so we were in Chris's mastermind together. And when we started the mastermind, she was business coach and I was a spiritual coach. And also, like when we started that mastermind, I was like the outcast. There was no like this. It was me and Steph.
Yeah.
It was me and Steph Nose, and like that was it. Like there was one of each of us.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I got pregnant. I got the mastermind, all the things we talked about it yesterday, and she stayed in. And she approached me. We spoke in New York at Tara Adiano's event. No, not Tara Adiano. Anyways, we spoke at Your Life Unleashed, and she said, I think I'm gonna start doing like more spiritual work. And I think she even asked me, like, does that bother you? I'm like, oh, no, I think that's great. Whatever. Well,
yeah.
Then, like, I had these 2 babies. I'm, like, roughing it in, like, rural New Mexico, like, just trying to mother twins. Like, really, like, I had 1 or 2 private clients, but I wasn't doing a whole lot. Meanwhile, like, she blew up. Mm-hmm. And I was so triggered. Why didn't she stay in her lane? Why was she, like, this is my work? Like, I was so triggered, especially, like, and then you start, like, well, she hasn't even done ayahuasca. She hasn't even done this. Like, I've done all the work, like, to do this work. She hasn't, and like making excuses when in reality, I had no idea what she had been doing that whole 2 years.
Right.
So anyway, I if you go to my Instagram, I put a post about it and I wrote all about it and I put a picture of us and how I was triggered. And it's the infinite potential. It had nothing. She did nothing wrong, but just do her thing. I chose.
Right.
And it wasn't just because of having babies. Like I chose whatever it was to be lazy. I chose to not invest in myself that year. I chose to go one route. I didn't maximize like my ability. So my business didn't grow at the rate hers grew. Now, she has hundreds of thousands of followers. I have few. I charge $100,000 for a private client. She charges whatever, $8,000 for a retreat. So it's not that one works better than the other. They're just very different. And so also like tuning back into my gifts, my abilities, and then having a deep, deep appreciation for hers. Because I couldn't do what she does. I couldn't touch all of these hundreds of thousands of women in these little ways the way she does. I don't have the bandwidth for it. I can work a year long with a private client, but I can't do all this content and do all this stuff. I don't desire to. So really like turning the trigger into a deep appreciation, because here's the thing, collaboration over competition. Like if she is reaching even one more woman that I wouldn't have, why would I not want that? That would be a showing of that I'm not like in this really for service, and I am. Mm-hmm. And so if I am, then I want her to help people. Right. So like when you see somebody online and you're like, tune in, like what's the why? It's because either you're not having appreciation for your own gifts, or because you're seeing an infinite potential that's possible for you and you're just not moving on it.
Yeah. Oh, I feel that. And thank you so much for sharing that. It's definitely a vulnerable moment. And I know that everyone listening has those moments with other people, and sometimes we don't explore it fully and we just chalk it up to whatever, them being fake or phony or copycats, when in reality you can, look a little bit deeper and see like what the radical responsibility is that you can take accountability for and then change that. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I want to add, like in my line of work, like, yes, like I could have like kept that attitude of copycat or whatever. And, at the end of the day, I want people to elevate to their highest selves and transform their lives. So if she's doing that for people, you know what I mean? Why would I not want that? And so really tuning into like your heart of service and like, what is your motive behind what is your, not just what your charge is, but what is your motive behind the charge? Because if my truth is I'm here to help people and she's helping people, then there's no reason to be jealous or to be anything. I called
Right.
myself out on Instagram a while, like it was like a year ago, but and it's so good. And so it showed like growth in my experience too, the ability to be like, hey, this is how I felt. It's normal to feel this, and it's normal to say, actually, I'm going to reclaim like my power and my gifts and my heart of service by outing myself.
Yeah. And what do you think that that did for you with your community, with your business, online, like having that transparent moment with your audience? I feel like some people might be fearful to do something like that.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, so when I first started my business, I had all these t-shirts, authentic as fuck, soul ascending, all these things. Like they're all like buzzwords now. And
yeah.
it's, but like I mean it. And the thing is with my audience and especially my community and Taylor too, like we were great friends, in the years that we were in the mastermind together, and like they know me. And I really am really fucking authentic. So like what you see is what you get. And so I don't think my community was surprised at all by that. I think it's just an affirmation of how real I am, that I'm able to say, actually, this is what I'm experiencing. And I don't hide anything. Like I've told them, like I just said, I got beat on this podcast. I say all of this shit, right? Most people like they hide their secrets, but here's the thing: is like it's true. Like your magic is in your message. Your
Mm,
impact is in your mess. Like whatever you've experienced, if you can be just totally open about that, even if you're not in like a public work frame, even in your own life in your community, think about the freedom. There's not much, if anything, that anybody in my field does not know about me. And there's such a freedom in that.
yeah. That's so beautiful, especially as it relates to, butterfly season, being in the process of the cocoon, the undoing, but being able to be transparent about it. I really do feel like with the right people around you, like you can collapse time in the healing journey, you can collapse time on the opportunities when you are more open and transparent and honest about what's going on, because people are able to see themselves in you and they could even offer a solution on how they got out of that situation quicker or, anything. Help even with someone like you to guide them through that like life process. So I so appreciate you sharing that and being super transparent, because I know that a lot of people wouldn't. So thank you for that. I also want to just thank you for pouring into everyone who's listening today. This was so good. Like so, so good.
Thank
But
you.
before I let you go,
Yes.
will you let the audience know where they can find you?
Pretty easy. It's themissjordan.com, missjordan.com is my website, and then the Miss Jordan on Instagram. So that's it. That's all I got.
Beautiful.
Yes, thank you
Beautiful.
so much.
Of course, thank you. And I'm just so excited to keep in connection with you. You guys follow her online. Look through all of her stuff. It's great. The retreat's beautiful. Jordan has so much to offer and so much that we can all benefit from. So thank you so much.